We're now going to move on to Chris, who's going to seize control of the screen and give you an overview of how to run through BEST. Over to you.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Bruce, as well. So, hopefully you can all see my screen in a minute, and kind of before the blue disappears, it won't be blue screen of death, I certainly hope, but this is the kind of the opening kind of screen that you come to when you open up BEST or download it from the website. So you'll first get this kind of box that comes up, which is reminding you to actually enable macros and make sure everything actually works within Excel, which is always quite an important point. So if we click continue, hopefully, and we open it up. So this is the screen that you will be welcomed to within BEST. It provides links to other parts of BEST, and particularly when you first come to this, would really encourage that you just explore it a little rather than maybe just try and jump straight into I want to throw some values into the tool. So within here, it'll kind of jump to different pages, which we'll just run through in a moment within the tool. But it also allows you to open up the full BEST guidance, which will appear online, and I'll show an example of actually how we've linked that and how it comes up to try and make it a little bit more user friendly in a moment. And as ever, we would always like feedback on BEST in terms of its functionality, anything that you spot you think that could be improved, because we'll always look to do some kind of tweaks and refinement even between any kind of major launches that we do of the tool. So you can use the buttons here, but also I'll just draw your attention up to the top. So there is a BEST ribbon, and that allows you to kind of actually go to different parts of the tool kind of quickly, just so you can jump to and fro. So I'm just going to firstly go to the BEST workflow, and so you'll see to the left of the Welcome tab 4 tabs which are kind of highlighted in yellow. And so this first one here, the BEST workflow and how-to guide, this actually provides then the workflow through. It also it's also hyperlinked to jump to certain parts of the tool as well. And you can see it's color coded up. That allows you to kind of think, is this information that I kind of put in, which is in purple? Is it for information, which is, for example, yellow? Is it where you fill in, or it's for information as well? And I'll show you some of these sheets as I run through this. Or are they sheets that automatically update, for example, the summary of the outputs, which is a big table, and then the summary results, which is the dashboard. Now, as you slowly scroll down here, and I'll scroll down slowly, so then it'll hopefully kind of catch up. Firstly, it just explains about the ribbon itself, which should be fairly self-explanatory as you kind of click and move through it. It then also shows you the 3 different color boxes which Bruce mentioned before, which are kind of common throughout the tool. Orange is an input, blue where you select, and green, which is a value that is then calculated within the tool. And so if I just scroll down a little bit further, at the top of each benefit, there's typically 2 buttons. That takes you either to the values library, and the values library is where all the values for each benefit are actually held, and also the BEST guidance for that particular benefit. So rather than having to search through the guidance, you'll just be taken to pages online which actually includes that information. And then if you just scroll down a little bit further, there's just some very simple explanation for key parts of the tool just to help to get you actually going in that. So that's really a little bit around the workflow and how-to guide. We won't dwell on this, but Bruce mentioned about the information requirements. So for each benefit, this actually tells you the minimum information and actually if you want to go into further detail. So again, that's easy to access as part of a tool for when you start. How you evaluate the benefits, so Bruce talked through this. So this just gives a little bit more explanation of that impact pathway approach that Bruce talked around. And we think that's quite important because when you look at benefits and looking to evaluate benefits, what's really critical is you get a feel for what the local context is. Because I'd say context is king here in terms of actually understanding the impacts or the effects that a solution might actually have with the benefits that will actually arise. And then finally, there is always the risk of potential for double counting. And this sheet just very simply looks to highlight between one benefit and another, and where it highlights red, it indicates that there is the potential for double counting. And the guidance explains actually a lot more about what to do on that. So if we come to the tool, and I've kind of done a slight Blue Peter version here, for those of you of the right vintage for Blue Peter. So I've kind of prepared some aspects earlier, but this is the project inputs page, which has been simplified from previous versions. So you can simply type in your project name, give a reference number, and a version of the assessment. You can put in your name, and then you can summarize if you have a baseline option, which often might be do nothing. And then you might summarize your proposed option, which in the case that I'm going to just briefly talk through, it's distributed sustainable drainage across a catchment. You can put in your baseline option for the cost and your proposed option cost. So in this case, I'm going to put in £10 million. We'll even add another naught to that. And this just kind of actually comes through into the results dashboard at the end. So once you've actually done that, you can also double click and say who are your scheme supporters, who are your funders, and that will then actually bring up a dialog box that actually allows you to then select and enter those in. And we use a standard discount rate of 3.5%, but you can go and actually change that. And you can change that by going into the present value calculation. So the present value calculations actually hold all the calculations. But the key things within here that allows you to make changes is you can actually apply the discount rate within the table here. So I'm going to come back now to the first step, which might be that if you just wanted to get a quick feel for what the impact is of a scheme, you can complete what's called the course assessment. The course assessment asks some very simple questions. It's there to give you an indication. It is not there to provide you with the evidence to go off and look to achieve funding. And we look to make that actually kind of very clear. But in this situation here, and I think what's probably quite important I just mentioned is, as part of, if you look to actually fill this in, you need to actually be prepared and be armed with some information, which is typically around either the type of SUDS or natural flood management measures that you might be using, or the outcome that is actually generated by this. So a very good example would be, for example, around flood risk, where flooding is as a result of a scheme that you've actually put in. The tool won't calculate the change in a flood risk, but you will need to enter values in that allows that to then actually be calculated. So if we just take this course assessment here, I'm just going to quickly add in some values linked to this example here. So the number of trees planted in urban, suburban areas, and we make a distinction between woodland and non-woodland. So we've got 264 trees. We're going to say 600 people actually get a benefit from the green space. The number of properties that have been flooded less, we're going to say 60. The area of land that might be enhanced. In this case, it's about 1.5 hectares of area. And then as we scroll down again, the length of watercourse that might be improved. And so we're going to estimate 2 kilometres in there. So once those numbers are actually inserted, it automatically populates this table here, and we've made some assumptions behind this. And those assumptions are actually dealt with and incorporated into, I think, Appendix C in the guidance. So you can understand actually how these values are created. And then what you see then on the right-hand side is a graph that actually shows that distribution here. And in this case, it's dominated by flood risk, but it starts to give you a view in terms of, is it worth me actually looking at potentially certain benefits to actually gain a valuation of them. So that's the first stage. Once you've done your course assessment, you would go on to what we call the screening questions that Bruce referred to. And so you can go through the screening questions for each benefit. We have the questions and some aspects to consider. The significance here is really just for your own kind of valuation and to help you kind of think through. And then you can click on these and you can say no or yes in the terms of do you want to actually value the benefit of that. So once you've done that, you would click to open the benefit pages, and then that goes ahead and opens up a number of the benefits. Right at the bottom of here as well, Bruce did mention that you can undertake kind of scenario assessment. And so if you want to do that, we won't open that today, but that allows you to actually then look at the option that you're proposing and consider what might change in the future and subjectively look at that change, which then alters the monetized values. So these are the different benefit categories that we've opened up. And I'm just going to go into air quality now as an example. So air quality, if you remember at the top I said you have these buttons. So firstly, if you click on the air quality button, it will say, do you want to open this file? We click OK. And if I can drag it up, what you should then see is you see the individual benefit guidance for the benefit that you've decided to open up, and so that then actually gives you the guidance for that benefit. And within here, it also includes kind of both guidance and also in places links to where you might want to look at other data and information. So, for example, under air quality, you might want to look at the national atmospheric emissions inventory for different types of pollutants, and that would give you a feel based on the location where you are in terms of is say air pollution a significant issue. Because if we're evaluating air pollution, if it was in a location where the air quality is good, the value that we actually gain from that wouldn't be appropriate to go and actually measure. So if we just scroll down this page, I'll just kind of say that you can record evidence. So we do encourage you to record the evidence as you kind of go through for each benefit. When you've filled in the screening questions, it automatically brings through the comment that you have added within that screening question, and then you can go and add in further information. Just as a way to record, because if you come back at a later date, you've got the evidence in one location. I'm just going to scroll down now. So we have our first section, and this is if you've already kind of completed an air quality assessment, you would actually put in the numbers. But in this case, we haven't, so we want to actually use the tool to help us actually understand what's happening here. Now, this is very much that we're looking to add features and measures to the catchment. So we can add in vegetative interventions, excluding trees. So this is the green roofs, basins, other kind of green infrastructure. And so in the example that I'm kind of talking about here, there's about I think it was about 1 hectare of interventions like rain gardens and swales, and there was about 0.6 hectares of a new basin that was going to be kind of created. So that tells us actually the size of the area. There are some cells which, whilst you can select, actually we only have one set of values in at the moment, and therefore they will automatically appear within the tool when you start. But we'll just draw your attention to, you can actually select a user-defined value. And a user-defined value actually appears in the values library. So I'm just going to click on this cell up here for one moment. So this then takes you to the benefit in the values library. And within the values library, you'll see we have the different pollutants here. And as you scroll across, you actually can see where you can add in a user-defined value. And that can then appear back in the original drop-down box that you were looking to actually use. This also then contains the information behind the values as well. So it's quite useful to switch back and forth. So if we just come back to this benefit, we can also input the number of trees. So in this case, there was about 260 small trees that we've added in. So we put those numbers in there. These again were the only values that we've got, so they're actually showing there. When we scroll down, we can then look at the pollutant removal monetary values. So this time we actually have choices to go either low, central, or upper. So I'm just going to put in the central values today. And there's a couple of values which we don't currently have, but we've left space in the future for them to actually occur. And then we're going to put in 2019 start. And if we want to put it over a 40-year period, we'll finish in 2058. And then what you'll see is I've already chosen to populate the confidence values here, but it automatically does the calculations in green. So we can then see before confidence and after confidence what the values are. And so this is typical then throughout the whole tool in the terms of the approach, in terms of adding in the quantities, selecting values, and then seeing what the pre and post confidence values are. So I'm now just going to jump to the monetized values which appear within a big table. And this table is quite helpful because you can see where you might have put in by accident wrong start and end dates. It allows you to kind of see the main benefit and then the sub benefits, and actually see what the present value before and after confidence is. And also again allows you to make some comments again. So this is quite a helpful table to help check what you're actually doing. I'll just move to sensitivity for a moment. As Bruce mentioned, we have sensitivity, and you can change to have a low and a high value of sensitivity, and we kind of recommend within the guidance that you typically go one step down. So within the guidance, within the tool, you can select in 25, 50, 75 or 100% behind the confidence that you have, and so you can then kind of select up and down the values that you want, and then this goes and actually calculates then that sensitivity. This will then, just using the ribbon again, comes then through to the dashboard. And so the dashboard, as shown here, allows you to actually look at a benefits wheel. Now, in this case, it's dominated by amenity, and this was by a potential increase in house prices, which is as part of this work. But within here, it allows you to drop down and select how many benefits that you would like to see within the benefits wheel. And you can also then say, I want to look at it before confidence, after confidence, and so you can see actually how these change. So this just gives you a feel of the distribution. If we come across to the right here, you can see the present value, which is using an ecosystem services summary calculation, and you can see under the four categories what the pre and post values are. You can use your filter within the tool as well to enable you to actually switch things on and off, so it allows you to put in the sensitivity values for example, and they actually apply. So we've looked to keep the functionality within Excel there to actually give you some flexibility. So in the same way, if we look at all the benefits and actually how they're distributed, you can actually click again here and you can turn benefits on and off, so you can then just get the benefits that you're actually interested in. If I just briefly scroll down, you can see then the summaries and the net present value before and after confidence, benefit cost ratio. And I'll just draw the attention to what's called the benefit distribution score. This is based upon the how well the benefits are distributed, and do you actually have a dominant benefit that if you lost it, potentially you would see a big shift in the benefit values. A score of A means you're very well equally distributed in the benefits. A score, as you then actually come down the alphabet, is a worse distribution. And then just within the summary here, you then just have a summary per the benefits for pre and post and the sensitivity values. So just a final thing I'll mention here before we just take any questions and then we move into the case study is the export function. So I'm just going to click on this. And for some reason, that's not working for me. Worked for me this morning. This would actually bring up a dialog box, which I'm just wondering where it's gone. Bear with me for a minute. Where we say you shouldn't do things live. Excellent. Right, I've now got a dialog box, which I'm going to try and, for some reason, if I put it onto a different screen. So when exporting, do not leave the page, but wait for the export to finish. So we press OK. We get another box come up, which says just don't move and not change anything. And then you get to choose what information that you want to be corrected. And this will create a word summary automatically from everything that is actually within the tool. So I'll click OK, all and click OK, and so that will then whir away, and it will create a Word document with the key information throughout the from the tool. So that includes the results. It includes some inputs information. And all the final numbers. And it's just creating on my other screen. It would have been great to be shown creating on this screen, but I daren't move it. So once that's finished, I'll just actually drag that up and show through that. But that basically kind of actually summarizes then everything that's actually within the tool. So I think we're there. So I'm going to see if I can now drag this up. Here we go. In fact, you can just see it actually building while we're actually talking. And so that then actually, as I said, contains all the information that you can export into other reports or append as evidence. So that probably summarizes the tool and how it's actually kind of used and actually some of the outputs that we can create from that.
Fabulous, thank you for that, Chris. I think that was really helpful. I've certainly learned things that I haven't seen before, so that's always good to help with understanding the functionality of BEST. So thank you. We have two questions before we move on, and the first one is from Ivan, and bear with me. So this is, hi, an example carried out as coarse assessment. The majority of the benefits were related with flood risk mitigation. If we would have developed a detailed economic assessment of flood damages accounting for water depth and velocities outside of the BEST tool, are we double counting benefits? Or are the flood risk benefits showed in the BEST tool not related to damages of property avoided?
Ivan, thanks for that question. So kind of first off, the coarse assessment is literally there to actually provide a bit of an indication of what it is. If you'd already done your assessment, I'd recommend you wouldn't need to actually even put anything into the flooding numbers there, purely because you already know what the values are. If we come to then to the main tool, and I've just brought up the flooding page here, we actually have a number of different ways in which values can be entered. So in the case that you've kind of said where you've done a detailed economic assessment, you would actually enter in those values into the tool at this point, and therefore it can be seen amongst all the other benefits, but then we wouldn't be double counting at all because you will just simply put in your valuation.
Okay, great. And the next question, thank you for that last question, Ivan, but the next question is from Nicola, and I think it's probably a similar question in terms of data. Could you please give some more information about how to adapt the analysis to other countries? The monetary availability and impact may differ from each country.
I'll kick that off and then Bruce might come and correct me. But essentially, how we've looked to develop the tool is we always took a preference to, can we find UK-based numbers in terms of the benefit valuations, and can we find evidence which is as recent as possible. So that's always been some of the key principles that we've actually worked on. There's other principles which explained in the guidance. So what I would say is, if you were to use it in other countries, I would probably have to note an urge of caution, just purely because we've tried to have it as a UK focus. So then, in terms of if you use it, be aware of actually what you're using and where the evidence has actually come from. You can also, though, look to in the user-defined values. If you have a value that you've got specifically for that country, you could then actually bring it into the tool. As I kind of showed you on the values library, so you could actually put your value from that country into the tool. So there is some flexibility to actually do that. You just have to be a little bit cautious if you purely want to use the values.
Okay, great. Thank you for those answers, Chris. So before we move on, I just want to check with Chris. My understanding is that example you put in there is from the Roundhay case study, is it? And that's now on our website, that case study.
Yes, yeah.
Great stuff. So if you wanted a bit more information, a bit more detail about that, if you didn't capture that screen grab at the end, have a look at that, please.